You can find themorningline.substack.com, written by legendary Cincinnati Enquirer sports columnist, former sports columnist at the Enquirer since retiring, Paul Daugherty. Doc, we put up on the screen your most recent column, unless you had one this morning that I missed, but the headline on it, we put it up on the screen a moment ago, baseball is dead. Why?
Because the New York Mets just spent $160 million on Brandon Nimmo, who was the kind of the working definition of pretty good. If the Mets are spending that kind of money for a player like that, what are the Reds going to do?
Well, what are they going to do? I mean, it's not like all of a sudden, and we've covered a little bit of this ground before about, it's the only major sport that doesn't have a salary cap.
Yeah.
And so teams can spend into oblivion. I mean, it's just, the Correa contract the other day, they're going to pay the guy till he's 41 years old, over $3 billion. I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, the players aren't going to listen to anything about salary cap until the owners open up their books. And if you're the players, why would you consider salary cap until the owners open the books?
Well, and it doesn't, people say to me, well, why can't they just do what the NFL does? Well, it's a totally different economy. They don't have the NFL's TV contract, first and foremost, first, last, and always, actually. I mean, the national TV contract, the NFL, dwarfs baseballs, and it allows the NFL to do what it does, which is share the revenue equally. In the meantime, baseball, each team keeps all its own media money, local TV, regional networks, all that stuff. And obviously, New York and Los Angeles and bigger markets are going to have numbers for revenues from television and media that are going to dwarf smaller markets like this one. So I don't know how they solve this problem, Thom. Maybe they make it a requirement that to own a baseball team, you've got to be a billionaire a few times over. You've got to prove that you can afford to pay Brandon Nimmo $160 million for 8 years.
Ken Rosenthal, who's been covering baseball as well as anybody over the last 25 years. Guy does a great job. You see him on Fox during the postseason, but he is a writer at heart and writes now for The Athletic. His story yesterday says the Reds are one of the franchises who ought to consider selling the team and bringing in new ownership. You and I both know that's not going to happen.
Probably not. Yeah, I don't know. And who do they sell it to? And who's to say that owner won't be a better steward or will be a better steward than Castellini is? Although some fans would argue anybody would be better. But I don't know. It's a very difficult situation. We've talked about this a million times because you don't go into spring training with a lot of hope. You go into spring training hoping that you'll win 5 or 10 more games than you won last year. Gee, I hope we don't lose 100 again this year, And that's why baseball sliding and football, one of the many reasons that football is far more popular these days, because the way the economics work in football, every team theoretically has hope coming into the season. And if they don't take advantage of that, it's their own fault. It's not because they're at the bottom end of the payroll sheet.
Let's shift gears over to the Bengals. I know you were out of town over the weekend and didn't have a chance necessarily to watch much, if any, of the Bengals win against Cleveland. It was a good, solid win. Got that, monkey off their back. Burrow finally able to beat the Browns for the first time in his career. Ended a 5-game losing streak overall to Cleveland. And now all of a sudden, the beat goes on. The momentum continues to gain, but also the injuries. Doc, we've talked a little bit about this before. I don't know what they're paying Duke Tobin down there. You know, he's a de facto general manager of this team without necessarily having that title. If there is one guy that's in line to get as big a pay raise as there is for any executive in the NFL, it has to be this guy with the depth this team has displayed so far this year.
Yeah, anybody can pick Joe Burrow overall in the first round, number one. That doesn't take any brains whatsoever. You and I could do it, which proves that. But you make your bones with the lower rounds. The guys starting with the third, fourth, fifth round of the draft, and then picking up guys off waivers or acquiring a guy like Samaje Perine, drafted Cam Taylor-Britt. These are the guys that are keeping them afloat, in my opinion. The good work that Tobin and his people have done in finding guys that you probably didn't even know much about, if at all, in August, but are helping them save their bacon, the Trenton Irwins of the world. But you know what, Tom? As long as they have a healthy Joe Burrow and a healthy offensive line, the other injuries will be problematic, but not devastating. I don't know of one other guy that they could lose that would wreck their season. Right. They lose Burrow, the season is wrecked. If they lose, I don't know, DJ Reader, who's having a great year, they lose him, they'll get by. They did. They have. I look at the schedule now, Tom, and it's difficult, but I don't see anybody on that schedule that they can't beat. They get the Bills here. I think they're as good or better than the Bills right now. They get the Ravens here. They're definitely better than the Ravens right now. They'll have a tricky game in New England, but that's certainly a winnable game. And then they got the game Sunday, which they should win by a couple of touchdowns. So they can finish this thing up 13-4 after starting 2-3, and then we'll wait and see what happens after that. But I don't see any team in the NFL that's head and shoulders better than the Bengals right now.
I'm with you all the way. The Joe Burrow talk of MVP is starting to crank up a little bit. But before I let you go, right now, Jalen Hurts is a guy. I mean, if the vote were taken today, he's going to win in a landslide. Do you think Burrow over these next 4 weeks has a chance to win that thing?
I think in theory he does. In practice, he doesn't. I mean, we've talked about this too. We kind of live in the shadow of flyover country around here. The guys here can be as good as guys elsewhere, but they don't get talked about. Patrick Mahomes, and he's in flyover country as well, but he's kind of unique. And the national media have latched on to him. Tua Tagovailoa was a passing fling, right? Everybody, 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was a top 3 MVP guy. He's not anymore. So sure, if Burrow keeps playing the way he's playing now, he'll be high on the list, but he's not in the major media market, and Cincinnati does not have the cachet that some of these other teams do. So unfortunately, and I don't know if he cares or not, maybe it drives him, maybe he couldn't care less. I don't think he's going to be the MVP.
All right, Doc, thank you for your time. Welcome back home. You got the TML lid, although we can't see it at that angle. You got it going there. And I'm told here by Trace Fowler, our CEO, that between Chatterbox swag, TML swag, we're going to get it all going.
You got to open a little shop there right next to the studio.
Well, we've got the biggest shop in town right outside here with headlines. They make all the uniforms for every high school team, boys and girls in the entire region.
There you go.
In fact, they even make Miami of Ohio's uniforms here. It's big league operation. Doc, thanks for the time, my man.
Bowl? One question. You going to watch the Fenway Bowl?
I am.
You are. You're lying.
I'm going to watch it. I mean, it's a weekend. It's Saturday. I mean, why not?
Saturday morning at 11 o'clock.
Even better.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, man. Have a great weekend.
All right, Tom. Thanks. See ya.
Good to see you. Paul Daugherty, kind enough to join us.